Prep Beat. I'm TJ Holmes. Alongside next to me is Thomas Lawrence. We are previewing Game of the Week, Red Bluff-Shasta. The Wolves are coming off a big 40-point win at home against Foothill last week to open up EAL play. Red Bluff, the exact opposite, lost at home to open up EAL play to Enterprise by 40 points.
And in Shasta's win over Foothill last week, it was a lot about senior running back Jake Calloway. You know, you were there, 123 rushing yards, couple of touchdowns. But that's where there's kind of a wrinkle this week. You know, I was talking to Red Bluff coach Corey Hunt, and he was saying he and his staff have compiled that Shasta basically has run the ball about 84-85% of the time this year. He thinks it's going to be more, 50-50 on Friday night. And that's something I could definitely see happening just with the way Shasta likes to mix it up. And, they got an ex-NFL quarterback prospect in Aaron Gingrey running the team. So, I mean, that's a likely source to want to pass every now and then.
Yeah, and one thing I remind you is last year they played two quarterbacks. Casey Toombs went down with an injury. Bailey Odell, who is now the current quarterback for Shasta, filled in nicely. But it was really the running game that won the game for Shasta last year. Avery Hawley scoring 2 fourth-quarter touchdowns to win by 1 point. So that running game was really key, for Shasta last year to get that win, that come from behind win. You're going to be at this game. What's one thing that you're kind of looking for to kind of focus on? One thing to kind of watch for the audience out there.
This is something I kind of bring up no matter what the matchup sometimes, but Shasta, a lot of pride in that big offensive line, guys like Zane Ventimiglia, who we've talked about plenty in the preseason, during the season. And Red Bluff has switched up its defense this year, went to a 4-man front, try and mix things up and try and have better results against some of its league opponents. And that battle in the trenches, the big boys down there, I think is going to be interesting to watch. And Gingrey basically told me, he's like, we win that, it's going to be another good night for us. If not, it could be a long night. And so I'm interested to see how that progresses.
Another long night could be a one down in Chico when Chico's hosting Enterprise, which in the past few years has been a great game. I mean, these games have been barn burners with these two teams, but Chico on the brink of panic mode. They could be starting 1-4 going against the #1 team in the Northern Section, Enterprise, who has pretty much deserved that rank as of this far in the season.
Yeah, this is not the team you want to kind of stumble back into a game against right now. And the thing about Enterprise is not only are they unbeaten, had a great year so far, but they used last week against Red Bluff. They knew that was a game they kind of rolled in the year before, and so they used it to get the passing game going, because that's the one thing that they haven't really showed yet this year. Bobby Lucan had 5 touchdown passes, and now if you're Chico, you're facing a team that's pretty much confident in every phase of the game, and that's not good news for a team that just blew a 28-point second-half lead last week.
Yeah, that's a devastating loss for any team, especially and going against the best team the next week. That's got to be tough to kind of transition into that. Foothill was kind of on that side. They didn't lose it wasn't as much of a devastating loss as they gave it away, but they just kind of got blown out. And Foothill's actually hosting Paradise this week for the first time since 2007. The Bobcats are coming to Palisadro. Brian Hamilton is not at the helm. This is the game that he's wanted for a long time. I've talked to him a lot about that in the past. He's not here to host the Bobcats. Joey Brown is here for that game. Paradise, gave up 26 to PV last week. Now they're coming up to Reading.
Yeah, it's tough. A nightmare basically for Foothill the last few years in facing Paradise. They've lost 3 section championship games down there. And the thing is, it's not just about Joey Brown being there, not Brian Hamilton. I think even if Brian was still in that job, it's just a transitional phase for Foothill. They're reinventing themselves in a program. A little turnover for Paradise too, but it's still a lot of the same guys that got them close to a section championship last year. So Foothill's going to have its best effort yet, for sure.
Yeah, and one stat I kind of want to throw out there is, Paradise has lost their last 3 games when they've traveled to Red Bluff or further north. So that's one thing to kind of keep an eye on. Foothill still searching for that first win. Kind of switching over to another game. It's interdivision game, non-conference. PV at West Valley. I'm going to be down at that game. And, we really don't know what we're getting out of this PV team yet. They've beaten a couple of teams that aren't very strong. And then they've also kind of dropped a couple games, and then they scored 26 on Paradise, and we don't really know if that's Paradise being down or PV being up. So this is kind of a good gauge to see where PV's at and where West Valley can really come into this game.
Yeah, that's well said. It's a matchup that maybe a decade or so ago we know it's that marquee matchup, but the Vikings still a big unknown. And to me, because of that, the one thing that stands out most, and it did last year, and West Valley answered the bell, is that will this be that trap type game where they have a hiccup? West Valley had that tough loss to Enterprise, an emotional win over Turlock. Now this is the bridge between that Turlock game and going to Valley Bowl against CV up in Shasta Lake on October 11th. Judging by last year, it shouldn't be a problem.
Yeah, one thing, like I said, I'm going to be at this game. One thing I want to look at is, Austin Clark scored 5 touchdowns in one of his best career games against PV last year in that 42-7 win. So obviously, West Valley's going to want to run the ball, establish the line of scrimmage, and really get moving. But one thing I want to look at is quarterback Cody Karpinski. Going into league next week, especially Valley Bowl in a big rivalry game, I feel like that they're going to want to throw the ball a little bit so they can get some confidence going into league because he hasn't really been able to throw the ball the last few weeks.
Looking at some more games in the area this week, we have another interdivisional game as D3 Mount Shasta travels to D4 Fall River. A couple of teams looking to get wins after losses last week.
Then you got Anderson going down to Gridley in a D2 matchup. The Cubs won that last year, as part of their one of their 2 wins. Then down 8-man football, you got number 2 unbeaten Dunsmuir hosting Butte Valley.
And more 8-man football. Hayfork looking to stay undefeated. They go to Big Valley. Reading Christian ranked number 1 in the media poll, and 8-man football hosts Happy Camp.
And for more high school football highlights and scores and everything else, photo galleries on Friday night, check out prepbeat.com.